I want to come to you now. At the same time, there's the issue of Theresa May wanting to talk about the future status of Britain without talking about the terms of its departure. And here in Germany, Chancellor Angela Merkel, she actually had something to say about that yesterday. Let's listen in briefly to that.
The first thing that has to be sorted out in negotiations is how we are going to untangle our shared commitments in an orderly manner. That will involve the many mutual rights and responsibilities that have been connected to EU membership up until now. Only once these issues have been settled, and hopefully that will be soon, only then we can talk about our future relationship. The European Union is a historically unparalleled success story. That will not change after Britain's departure. We will make sure of that.
All right, Helena, what do we make of that? And we hear there's also another important meeting today.
That's right. I think, firstly, regarding Chancellor Merkel's comments, she's having to talk big right now to hold the union together. She's saying don't expect to leave and then don't expect to have it your way. There's a lot of negotiations which will be underway. Remember, of course, the UK hasn't had any negotiators since the 1970s because it was using the European negotiators. So, of course, in that way, Germany is in a better situation. In terms of unpicking those agreements with the European Union, it's going to be very tricky. Look how long it takes for Switzerland, for example, to do bilateral deals with the European Union. Take a look at CETA, for example, that trade deal between the European Union and Canada. That was very tricky. It took over 5 years, and at one point we thought that that was in peril. So she's talking big right now, and in light of that, the British Finance Minister, Philip Hammond, has now come over to Berlin. He's on his way to hold a meeting with his German counterpart, Wolfgang Schäuble, perhaps to clear up some of this as well. But in the world of business, we always say, look at what is happening, not at what's being said. That will have an effect on the market. And in light of that, I do want to speak to our viewers now about some news we have regarding that now, some of the movements we're seeing in the City of London, because it does seem that Brexit is already beginning to bite. News that Lloyd's of London expected to move more than 100 jobs out of 600 from the British capital to Brussels to retain its foothold in the EU. Now, the insurance market says the move will be completed in the next 2 years to make sure that its Belgian base is up and running by the time that the UK is officially out of the bloc. Now, its business with continental Europe makes up around 11% of its premiums. Lloyd's is the first major UK financial institution that has chosen the Belgian capital as its EU base. So let's bring in Michael Hewson now at CMC Markets in London. Michael, do you think the move from Lloyd's is the start of something bigger for the UK?
Well, I think it's indicative of the debate that's been had over the last 6 to 9 months. We've already heard that a number of US investment banks and UK investment banks have been considering moving jobs overseas as a result of this Brexit vote. Now, New York and Singapore may get some of those jobs, but it's also quite conceivable that Frankfurt, Paris, Brussels and Luxembourg and Dublin could get them as well. But I think it's also important not to overstate this, because ultimately since 2008, the City of London has lost in excess of 150,000 jobs. And ultimately, we're still here. London is still the biggest financial centre in the world. And I don't think that will change, but I do think it's inevitable that some jobs will move as a result of events over the course of the past few months.
Michael, stay with us, because I want now to take a listen to what British Prime Minister Theresa May has to say regarding the cost of leaving the European Union.
Well, we're not talking about paying to leave. We will be leaving the European Union. What we're talking about is ensuring that when we leave, first of all, when we leave, people will see that we'll be taking decisions about our budget. We won't be being required to make significant payments every year into the EU's budget. As you say, there may be some particular programmes we want to be members of, that we wish to pay in order to be members of, because it will be in the national interest to do that, and that's what will drive us.
So back over to you then, Michael Hewson in London. How likely is it that Britain will have to stump up the cash for projects that it's already committed to regarding the European Union?
I think this debate about the budget is a little bit of a red herring. Ultimately, the UK is still going to be a member of the EU. until 2019. So that equates to around about another 2 years of payments. So we're talking around about 20 billion euros. And then, of course, you've got the potential differences between potential transitional arrangements. So I don't think anyone is suggesting that the UK is not going to pay what it owes. Ultimately, the EU budget was decided in 2014 and it was agreed up to and including 2020. So I don't think there's really any debate about that. I think this is a political question and I think the UK will pay what it's due. And ultimately, I think this is a bit of a distraction from the wider concerns with respect to the future relationship between the EU and the UK.
Michael Hewson from CMC Markets in London. Good to have your thoughts. That's the latest from the business desk for now. Sumi, back to you.
Thank you.